Good morning, Auroville. Good morning to the whole wide world. This is Krishna McKenzie, bringing you a road back to nature. So many things going on. Wow. This last Sunday was Adi Padnyate, which is the lunar month of Adi. So in Tamil Nadu, traditionally, as in many cultures in the world, we follow a lunar calendar. And this month is called Adi. And the 18th of Adi is the month is the day when you should find the seeds and plant them. So there's a proverb that says, Adi Pattam Tedavarai. Look for the seeds in the season of Adi. And traditionally it rains, always rains on that day. And thank God we had a little bit of rain on that day, at least to, justify this cultural, give it a cultural relevance. But it wasn't a huge rain. Still, something happened. A lot of people asking what to plant, how do I know what to plant, when to plant, how to plant, etc. And, this is definitely one of the informations that people need. I mean, first I would say they have to understand how to take care of soil, how to make a bed, how to create a space, what's the ideal space, light and shade and drainage, and understand all those perimeters. And then once you've done that, what to plant. So in this Adi season, in fact, you can plant most things. You can plant all the traditional gourds, the bottle gourd, snake gourd, the bitter gourd, the ash gourd, and you can plant also pumpkins, and long beans are very good. The wing beans get started now. They start now and then they'll grow through the main monsoon, the summer monsoon, and then through the main monsoon and start to get harvested in December and January. We can plant sweet potatoes. It's the same thing. These crops, they start growing with the summer monsoon, and then they benefit from the heavy, heavy rains of the main monsoon, which is in November and December. A little bit in October, and then they are started to harvest in the end of Jan and in February. And we can also start things like lady's fingers and cluster beans and cucumbers. The cucumbers from the botanical gardens are germinating very, very well at the moment, and they're doing wonderfully. So there are a whole bunch of things that can be planted in a garden. And then of course we have all the edible weeds, which are a permanent infrastructure, along with our bananas and papayas and and our fruit trees. And you have all the edible weeds, the joy weeds, the Brazilian joy weed, the ponangani, and the other types of amaranthus, and various weeds like the balloon vine and the tuduvale, the climbing brinjal. So all these beautiful plants are already there. And I think that, it's very important, we need the sustenance of some of us, of nice fat pumpkin and lush lady's fingers, okra, and nice tender, crunchy beans. We need all of that, but it goes hand in hand with the edible weeds, which should be sort of, they should be just a permanent intercrop into the garden. Maybe they flourish on the edge of a bed, or they flourish on the perimeters of the garden, or in patches they grow in between. We have one place in our garden where the ponangani is, it's where the ponangani is. And then in between that you have lady's finger and a bit of radish and a bit of this and a bit of that. And that's just fine. So how to communicate the importance of what to eat, what to grow, is defined by knowing, is defined by knowledge about these plants, and to know that, hang on, well, we eat those foods, so we want to grow them. But the problem is that most of us, I would say, now I'm talking about Auroville because this is an Auroville radio show, most of us probably don't eat bitter gourd. Most of us probably don't eat much bottle gourd or snake gourd. Many people probably don't eat much of cluster beans. In fact, cluster beans is not grown by local farmers in Auroville farmers, because the Food Link won't buy it, because people don't buy it, because the people don't like it, the people don't want it. But when they say they don't want it, is it from ignorance, or is it from really a deep understanding? Like, I don't want to eat a plate of neem leaves because I know what that tastes like. I'd have one neem leaf. But cluster bean, actually, if it's cooked well in the correct way with a little onion and garlic and ginger and a little chili and maybe some grated coconut, it's an exquisite dish. It's a very beautiful dish. And there are many North Indians or some Tamilians who know how to cook it, and they'll rave about it. Oh, please give me cluster beans. Please give me cluster beans. But it's not available in our shop because the Food Link tells the farmers, don't give it to us. We can't sell it. So I would say this is mainly where it's the issues that we have is it's the consumer's diet. Now, if we opened our diet on a table and looked at what we're eating, what are the foods we eat? And just do it as a very, is this something you could do now if you like? You start writing down, well, what did I eat last night? What did I eat for breakfast? What did I eat yesterday? What do I eat in a week? What is the food that I eat? And start exploring the carbon footprint of every ingredient. Well, where was the oil from? So if it was olive oil, then it came from Spain or Italy. So that came at a huge cost to the planet, although, man, I love olive oil. It tastes amazing, agreed. But there is a relevance there that it has a huge carbon footprint. Did I have potatoes? Did I have pasta? What is the food? Or did I have bottle gourd? Did I have varigoo? Did I have red rice? Did I use spinaches that were grown in my garden? What are the foods? Did I have pears that came from China and grapes that came from Hyderabad? Or did I have custard apple and, local chikus, that came locally, that were grown locally? So this understanding of what foods grow locally and what foods don't grow locally has to be understood by us as a community, as a population of a bioregion. I think that's the most fundamental precursor for a profound change in any society, because that society then would be sensitized to the foods that grow locally and don't damage our ecology. They don't come at a high cost on an ecological level. Because also it's very well documented, the more that we are sensitized and to local foods, to the environment, to ecological activities, the more our social bonds are growing. The more awareness and honoring of a local culture and local language, because inevitably it'll lead you to a local culture and a local language. And therefore our society becomes more, more held, more, there's an adhesive there at work. And that adhesive is the honoring of this cultural nutritional identity of this bioregion. So this is probably the most fundamental thing that we could do as a community, I would say, before even gardening, is to look at what we eat and to understand, what other possibilities there are. So instead of potato, there's taro. Now, there's a farm in Auroville called Oro Orchard, which is an incredibly productive and very, very well-run organic farm. And I think they have 1/4 ton of taro sitting in the field that they can't move, because no one wants it. Now, if you boil taro is like little tender potatoes. It's absolutely delicious. It's very easy to grow. It has no ecological cost because it's local. It uses less water. And it has a lot of medicinal and nutritional values, but they can't move it. So how do we communicate our community about taro? This is a very, very real example. Imagine quarter ton of potatoes that are going to be eaten in Auroville over the next, probably within a week. I guess we consume a quarter ton of potatoes, or maybe quicker than that. And imagine that taro instead is eaten. Look at what that represents on ecological level, on economic level, on a health level, on a social level. This is the narrative that I've been trying to hammer home, that I am constantly hammering home. These aren't abstract ideas, you know. I mean, the polar bears are dying because of global warming and the glaciers melting, and it's terrible. But it's a little abstract, you know. Here we are in Tamil Nadu, we don't have glaciers, so it's a little abstract. But this is real. You know, there's a quarter ton of taro in a field and no one wants it because no one knows how to use it, because no one is aware of that, because we're stuck in our bubble about potatoes. And it's slightly mystifying. Now, the last few days I personally don't go for funding. I like to do my projects off my own steam and on a community effort, but I've been a little bit involved in a couple of funding efforts the last few days. One has been Nina's book, which is the reprinting of edible weeds and naturally growing plants in Auroville, which is an incredible book because it actually starts to sensitize people to this issue, to plants that grow around us and plants that can be used and plants that could be eaten. So its value is incalculable on that level. You know, it has this incredibly huge potential in sort of like a lever shifting an inertia that cannot be changed on a cerebral level. If you tell someone who has cancer, stop smoking, very, very hard for them to stop smoking, but maybe at the last moment when they have cancer, they might stop. Or someone, you know, who has a chronic heart condition, you know, stop eating meat and, you know, take care of your cholesterol. Then they'll take care. But our problem is like that now on this planet. It's already like that now on this planet. The biggest problem we've faced in the community gardens is resistance from people not wanting to have gardens. People wanting to have their little lawns, and I personally believe it's not even them wanting to have their lawns and this and that. It's that they don't like change. You know, they want to have things as they are, and you know, people are afraid. In general, I would say people in general are afraid of the unknown, of the new. But actually, can we afford to accept that? Can we afford to you know, when you have cancer, can you afford to keep smoking? When you have high cholesterol, can you afford to keep eating meat? No, you can't, because you'll die. And that's the situation we're in right now. COVID illustrates that. Global warming illustrates that. You know, diabetes epidemic illustrates that. The illustration is there on a social level, on the level of cultural decay. On every level, we see the erosion of our well-being, and it starts on a fundamental level because of this lack of honoring of Mother Nature. And that's the most obvious way of honoring Mother Nature, is to understand where our food comes from. And because as I've mentioned time and time again, this, you know, sidesteps all the industrialization and the ecological cost of agriculture as it is practiced in the world today. So these funding efforts, you know, like Nina's book, they're invaluable. They're invaluable. And another project I've been doing is another sort of, it's a more like I don't exactly know how it would be presented, maybe like as a calendar or as an e-booklet or something, but it's called 365 Days, A Road Back to Nature, and it's a project that I came up with where we would show one idea every day as a photo and an informative text, and then a go-to action, a to-do action for people so that they would see, you know, the photo of chicken spinach, and then a photo, and then the understanding of what chicken spinach is, and then how possibly to use it. And the next day it might be, you know, another plant that you could use and its name and how to use it, how it could be cooked. And then the next day maybe it would be something like a neem stick, to understand that, hang on, we could brush our teeth with that. So the project's refused by the project coordination group because they say it's a book, and their guidelines are no books. And one is at a loss, you know. There's Aurovillians, there's me and Alessandra, who is a wonderful photographer and resonates on this with this work, and has already been involved with this work in Africa so deeply, ready to work for free to do this, you know, and yet, you know, you sort of see, I don't know if it's what it is. It's a bizarre sense of resistance. It's the similar resistance to when we go to a certain community and they, you know, and certain people are like, no, we don't like this. We don't want this. We don't want a garden here. Well, why not? You know, you have a space, you know, you have resources, you have water, you could be eating the food. No, we don't want it. One is at a loss of where this resistance emerges from. And I think one has to ask, you know, why are we here? What's the deeper meaning of our existence? What's the deeper meaning of being in Auroville? If Auroville is a spiritual community based on an adoration for the Divine Mother and the yoga of Sri Aurobindo, then surely being involved to some extent or another, or at least honoring and with heartfelt gratitude the gifts of Mother Nature, would be completely aligned with that, with the inner vision of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, and would quite possibly lead to the sensitivity needed to undertake such a momentous work as a yoga. And yet we're stuck, you know, and we're stuck collectively on that. You know, it's of course individuals, they reflect it, and it's easy to point fingers at individuals, but it's collective. And what you see in Auroville is in Tamil Nadu. What you see in Tamil Nadu, it's in India. What you see in India, it's in the world. You know, it's global. It's a resistance to come back to the essential. I think that people are lost. I mean, we as people, we are lost in conceptual ideas and thoughts, which are nothing more than electrons buzzing around our head, which are that are there due to the books we've read, the films we've watched, the YouTube channels we've subscribed to, and the things we've been told by our family, our society, our parents, etc. So that's a conditioning, and we're unaware of that, and therefore our world keeps being perpetuated by what we think we know. Fukuoka said to me very clearly, I mean, I was there in a group of people with Fukuoka in Dehradun in Vandana Shiva's farm when he was there in his early 90s. And he said, only a fool will understand nature. The Japanese word for fool is a baka, because a fool doesn't have a conceptual ideas. A fool is just vacant, absent-minded. And that fool can understand nature because he recognizes he is nature. He is one with nature. And I think that's the direction that we have to go towards. We have to empty our cup, stop thinking we know. Even about farming, we don't know actually that much about farming. We don't understand actually that much about anything. You know, empty our cup and allow it to be filled by Mother Nature. I think this is why I'm deeply attracted by the work of Nina Sengupta, and I feel very strongly to promote what she's doing and what she represents, because what she represents is a road back to nature, which is not just a cerebral knowledge of edible weeds. It's a sensitizing of our spirit to this depth and love that Mother Nature has for us. And yet we turn our blind eye, we turn our head to the other side. We walk on the other side of the road when she's there saying, hey, look at me, I'm here for you as well. And yet we don't want it. So that's why I deeply value this woman's work, is because she represents actually, a very profound inner change on a social level through honoring the most simple thing that's there here and now, and that's the local weeds. Unfortunately, the 365 Roads Back to Nature book was rejected by the PCG, which is, as I say, it's a bit, maybe they have certain perimeters that they're obliged to follow, I don't know. But it feels like we should be going out of our way to make things like this happen. And I hope Nina's book is not rejected for the same reason, because it's a book. I think because it's a book, projects are not accepted. And, but I desperately hope Nina's book is honored, because it's not only the book, it's the honoring of a vision that it represents. And that vision is at the very essence of our salvation, because we will be saved with nature and by nature. But without that, we're in a continuous spiral towards disaster. And how can Auroville be born? How can the vision of Mother and Sri Aurobindo be born on the basis of industrialization and destruction of this planet? It can only be born by a tender love and affection and honoring of that which is here and now and all around us, which is Mother Nature, expressed as local weeds and fruits and seeds and flowers and beauty are all around us. So questioning why we are here, the deeper reason of our existence. Fukuoka said the farming is not about growing crops, it's about cultivating the human soul. And I think really he captures it there. That's why we've come here. We came for something else. And I think if we can constantly remind ourselves that we came for something else, and that something else means everything. It means everything else. Not to hold on to the old, but be very willing and ready to change. And then we will create Auroville in the vision of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So thank you so much for joining me this morning and giving me this opportunity to share with you. If you have time, go and check out what's happening in Tibetan Pavilion. Bring a mask, respect their COVID perimeters. But it's very beautiful, the garden there. There's amaranth and radish and lady's finger and cluster bean, and they've just planted cucumbers, and there's bottle gourds and some pumpkin and all sorts of beautiful things, tapioca and bananas and papayas. The creativity garden is also absolutely delightful, with a new sprinkler system installed and a trellis, what we call a pandal in Tamil, with the bottle gourd all hanging from it. And today I think they're planting sweet potato and wing beans. The kids in vocation are doing really well, and that is a big inspiration. It's not easy for them. They're just 10, 12, up to 15 years old. There's like 5 of them. And they're facing actually all the social problems that we face in Auroville, but they face it as kids. And we sort of encourage them, to go beyond the challenges that they, don't get stuck. Keep going forward. And they're slowly growing and understanding that they have to water their beds regularly and mulch them and keep planting them. And there's a lovely evolution of something happening there. Sincerity is also going really well with they're doing their first weeding, because they have so much weed that's edible that they've left it. But now that weed is really too dominant, so they can't even grow a lady's finger. So they're taking those weeds out in the next days and starting to add some more lady's finger and cucumber and different things. There are gardens hopefully starting in Grace soon and starting in Dana. I think there's something has happened there. And then there's been requests of gardens in Kotakrai, in 3 places in Kotakrai. Angad is just like rocking his garden, amazing. Afsani is trying to start something. And I think Ricardo is also getting something going. It's beautiful, you know, it's beautiful. The secretary's garden is magnificent, really absolutely delightful. And you can join too. So if you find you have a space and you want to walk this journey together, this road back to nature, let us know, get in touch with us. Krishna McKenzie at auroville.org.in, and we'll be happy to try and help you. Okay, have a great morning. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.